Hello, my name is Steve Warmby. I'm a primary mental health worker with Psychology and Wellbeing Service in Jersey. This short training video on the River of Wellbeing is aimed at adults who support children and young people. So this might be school-based staff, other professionals, or parents. So the first thing we'll be doing is discussing what is the River of Wellbeing, to recognize when a child or young person is dysregulated, to have regulation strategies to support a child or young person. And then we'll be looking at the Healthy Mind Platter for cultivating well-being. So this analogy, the River of Wellbeing, is an alternative to Dan Siegel's window of tolerance. So whilst canoeing down the River of Wellbeing, you see on one side of the river is the bank of hyperarousal or chaos. And on the other side of the river is the bank of hypoarousal or rigidity. Some children and young people can bounce from one bank to the other and find it difficult to find the middle channel. And this then affects their ability to function effectively. So hyperarousal results from the fight or flight response and is characterized by excessive activation or energy. So we might notice difficulties concentrating, irritability, anger, outbursts, heightened anxiety such as panic, and feeling startled. You might notice changes in their behavior as well. And hypoarousal on the other side results from the freeze or sometimes the flop, drop or faint response, where there's a sense of shutting down or dissociating. This can present as exhaustion, depression, having a flat effect, disconnection, and numbness. So if we imagine the River of Wellbeing, we can see that there's obstacles to overcome, and the wider our river, the more chances we're going to be able to navigate. This is the optimal zone, so the equivalent of the window of tolerance. The River of Wellbeing is where we're functioning at our best. We can see this for the children in the way they're interacting with others, the way they're able to pay attention, to focus in their play or their schoolwork. So one of the challenges is to develop self-awareness, thinking about our position in the river. How wide is it? And what are the obstacles that tend to push us to overwhelm, either hyper or hypo arousal? And this graphic here shows a range from 1 to 9, or goes up to 10 actually. And it's also color coded. So as we go from 1 to 2, maybe into 3, you can see this is the hypoarousal starting to shut down. Up the other end, 8, 9, and 10 in red is where it's starting to be hyperarousal, anger, stress, anxiety. And then in the middle, sort of 4, 5, 6 is where we're in that river. And that's represented by green and yellow going into orange. So supporting a child or young person to stay in or to return to their river of well-being. So number one is being aware of where you are in your own river of well-being. And if you're out on either bank, you're not going to be able to effectively support them to be in theirs. If outside of your river, use strategies for yourself firstly. Dr. Laurie DeSotels, who works in the field of educational neuroscience, quotes, "A dysregulated adult cannot regulate a dysregulated child." Second thing is to explore the foundations. So things like sleep deprivation, poor nutrition, lack of exercise, physical pain or illness, substance misuse, or any underlying neurodevelopmental condition or underlying stress. These are all likely to narrow the river. And then understanding their triggers, what tends to move them outside of their window. So examples might be sensory overload. Some children can be very stressed in particular environments if it's very noisy or bright lights and things like that. They might have peer problems. You might notice particular times, perhaps during playtime or transitions, they might get into quarrels with their friends. And they might have difficulty with written work or sustaining attention for long periods. In the ABC chart, an example at the bottom there. So the ABC stands for the antecedents or the triggers, the behavior, and then the consequence. These can be quite useful just to look for themes and to notice, is there anything that's setting off this child, moving them outside of their river of well-being. And then you can consider, are there any adaptations that can be made? And then understanding what helps. So obviously everybody is an individual. What works to return some person to the river of well-being might not work for someone else. And then as you explore, it's worth recording, making a list. And even though these may change over time, and communicating. So if it's a family, communicating with the school or vice versa. And sort of saying, these are the things I know helps to help regulate my child. The other thing is to recognize that some children might find a strategy helps them move from a hypo-aroused state into the river well-being or a hyper-aroused. So it just depends on the individual. So some ideas from moving from hyper-arousal and back into the river well-being. The first thing is to recognize that when they are not in their river of well-being, then the thinking part of the brain is offline as such. What is activated is the brainstem and the limbic area of the brain, so the lower areas of the brain. So we need to start off with validation, which is really showing the child or young person that you can see them, you can see what they're struggling with. So often we go into problem solving and trying to justify things, and they won't be able to access that language. Also self-soothing or self-regulating behaviors, which we'll go through. And avoid overly talking or trying to make sense of the situation. Allow for choice and control. Just recognize that this person needs to feel safe and feel felt, which is that emotional resonance, feeling understood and feeling connected. Need to practice the skills regularly and when calm. So when we are calm, then we can take on new information. And when these skills become familiar, then we're able to apply them at times when emotions are heightened. So one exercise that we can do is diaphragmatic breathing. And this is also called belly breathing. So as you breathe in, you're just allowing your belly to expand. And as you breathe out, you allow your belly to fall. And you can have a hand placed on the belly just to feel the movement. As you breathe in, belly rises. And as you breathe out, it begins to fall. And when we do this, we're using the full capacity of our lungs, which forces the diaphragm out, which allows the belly to rise. With younger children, they can practice lying down with perhaps a soft toy on their belly. And as they breathe in, they notice the toy rises up. And as they breathe out, the toy starts to fall. Square breathing combines regulating the breath, but also some distraction because you're focusing on a square shape. And this can be an imaginary shape, or it can be something like a picture or a mirror or a window. And it doesn't have to be exactly square. What they do is they focus on one corner and they breathe in, move along to the other corner, hold their breath as they move down, breathe out as they move back. Hold the breath as they go back up to the beginning, and then just continue, just focusing, breathing in, holding the breath, breathing out, and holding the breath. 7-11 breathing is where you're counting 7 as you breathe in and then 11 as you breathe out. And we know that if we extend the out breath, it naturally activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relaxation response. For younger children, again, we can use 3 and 5 breathing. So 3 breathing in and a count of 5 for breathing out. You usually find it easier to breathe in through the nose and then just to gently blow on the out breath. Drinking from a straw. So if you're drinking from the straw, you're activating very sort of basic self-regulating behaviors. If we sort of think about using a dummy, breastfeeding, they're sort of naturally self-regulating. Progressive muscular relaxation is where you're tensing different muscles. So like you might tense your fists as you breathe in, and then you release as you breathe out. And you might do different parts of the body, sometimes systematically. So you might then go to your lower arms, then your biceps, then your shoulders, your face, moving down the body, down to your feet. For younger children, you can just do whole body rather than breaking it down to different areas. So one way of doing this is to imagine being a robot, being stiff like a robot, and then change into a ragdoll as you breathe out. And with progressive muscular relaxation, you just need to be careful of high blood pressure. You would then do it very lightly, or just imagine the movements. Or if you had any recent surgery or injuries to that area, you would just avoid tensing that part. Finger breathing, again, combines the breath, but also a sense of touch and also a sense of sight. And we just trace around the fingers with the breath. So as we breathe in, go to the tip of the thumb, and then breathe out down the back. Breathe in at the next finger and breathe out. We just continue breathing in and breathing out. And then we can go on to the other hand as well. Tracing and breathing is when you're tracing a shape on a piece of paper. You keep the pencil or the pen on the paper all times, and as you're making the shape, you're just continuing to breathe in a particular way. Visualization, so we can just access a safe place, sense of refuge, what might be a happy place that you'd like to go. For some people it might be down the beach, or for other people it might be in their own bedroom. Jumping on a trampoline. So as you jump, you get that sense of rhythm. There's the excess movement, which is really good, but also rhythm can be really soothing for lots of children. And just going back to some of the breathing techniques, some children, if they get very anxious, they may not want to use the breath. It might be quite difficult for them. Or if they've experienced trauma in the past, again, some children might struggle with that. So you can just go on to movement without the breath if that's the case. And then we can do something with a yoga ball, or physio ball, where they can sort of bounce it against the wall. Again, combining movement, senses, and also rhythm. Similarly, bouncing a ball, kicking a ball. If we've got if somebody who's quite agitated, we can try and stomp or shake it out. And similarly, brisk walking or marching on the spot. Star jumps, really, really good. Not only is it a great way of exercising and getting rid of a lot of adrenaline and cortisol in the system, but also it's a bilateral activity. So by using both sides of the body in that way, you're activating 2 sides of the brain. And similarly with large bilateral movements. So you can do with an imaginary brush, doing a big figure of 8, or any sort of movements in terms of dance or stretching with 2 parts of the body. We have access to the drums, again, rhythm, sound, and movement. Lots of sensory stimulation. Stress balls, and any sort of work, heavy work, such as lifting things or pulling things, again, is using, sort of tapping into the sensations in the body, and also having a sense of exercise, getting rid of adrenaline, cortisol. We know weighted blankets can be very soothing for children. There's a little caption here, rolling over a yoga or therapy ball. Again, that sense of pressure can be very calming. Using opposite sides, so blinking with one side of the body whilst finger clicking with the other, and then alternating it. Again, it's very, very focused to be able to do that, and it can really help in terms of regulation. Dual drawing is where you're co-regulating with the child, so you might do the first part of the drawing and then they continue it, and then you alternate in that way. Again, that sense of connection, which is really important in terms of regulation. Bilateral scribbling to the beat of music. So this drawing here, so using two colours, maybe two crayons or two pencils, maybe with music's available, and you're just scribbling with two sides of the body again. Might have a comforting drink or some food. Something like warm water can be very soothing. Sometimes, again, the opposite of that, some cold water can change the physiology. And as we know, for lots of people, music can be very soothing. Also, certain sounds, you can get audios of things like a crackling fire or birds singing or sound of waves for some people can be very calming. Capturing sound is where they're tuning into the sounds they're noticing in the environment, and as soon as they notice a particular sound, they imagine that they have a net and they just catch the sound, and then they wait for the next sound to come along and they do the same. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, using the 5 main senses. So you do 5 things that you can see, so looking around a room, just silently labeling things that they can see. 4 things that they can feel, so it may be the chair beneath them, their feet on the floor, the touch of clothing, or they may have something in their hand that they can feel, or their palms together. 3 things that they can hear. 2 things that they can smell or imagine the smell of. So you might be the smell of soap, or you might get them to sort of particularly take in a smell when they're drinking something like hot chocolate, which they really like, or freshly baked breads or cakes. So when they're actually with those objects, it's really seeing if they can absorb them, really notice the smell, and then if it comes to it, then they can bring that back as an imaginary smell. And then one thing you can taste or imagine the taste of. So often we have a residual taste in our mouth. We might have just brushed our teeth or just had a drink or something to eat. So you can notice that, or they can think about something that's pleasant. And then some schools will have what they call a sensation wall. So rather than labeling emotions, which can be very difficult for some children, they have more sensations, which sometimes they can relate to easier. So feeling empty, feeling rattled, feeling tense. And then if the child isn't able to articulate, they can just point to the wall. This is how I'm feeling right now. So then if you're thinking about them moving from a hypo-arousal state back into the river of well-being, again, focusing on senses, thinking about all the senses, things like crunchy or chewy food, use of a sensory shaker, and then small movements gradually getting bigger. So if somebody's very shut down, they might be very closed, just starting off by just saying, right, can you wiggle your toes? And if they start to wiggle their toes, then can they start to move their feet a little bit more, just starting to build up movement. They might have some sort of gentle movement on a yoga ball, just sort of bouncing gently on a trampoline. If you have access to a rocking chair, just sitting and having that calming movement of being rocked. Again, a weighted blanket. The butterfly hug is very popular within schools. This is where you cross your hands, fingertips are probably on the collarbone, and then you just interlink the thumbs like this. This forms a butterfly, and you alternate. So it'd be one wing first, and then the other. So you might do 2 taps on either side, like this feeling of a heartbeat. Or you can just alternate. Again, it's bilateral, it's a sense of touch, and this can be really soothing, having this almost like a little weighted blanket here. Again, stress balls or squeeze balls or slime, using finger painting, finger tracing, so the caption here with a labyrinth, just using the finger just to move around. Or to play with straw, and that brings in the diaphragm as they're blowing into water. Sand play, dancing and music. Again, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then rolling a pencil between the palms. And again, they can do this with the breath. So you're just going into breathing in and breathing out and breathing in and so on. And they might again have like a massage by washing their hands. There's another way, it can be very sensory. Okay, so in terms of being present, so in order to soothe, it's about that child really knowing you're there with them. So you need to attend to your own needs, including all those basics we've mentioned: sleep, nutrition, pain management. Consider a daily brief mindfulness practice so you can become aware of your inner experience. This is also, if you know that you're struggling, then you can ask that self-compassion question. What is it that I need right now? How can I best take care of myself right now? So having a daily practice can really keep you in touch with how you're doing, and can then give you an idea of what you might do in response to that. And children can see through people as well. They're very perceptive. So it's really about being authentic and transparent. And modeling behaviors for regulation. So if you're noticing that you're feeling a bit stressed, you might say, I'm feeling a little bit offline, my thinking's a bit offline, and what I'm going to be doing now is some practice, like slow my breathing down or feeling my feet on the floor. When supporting someone who's dysregulated, using grounding techniques yourself. So ground yourself first and then look to support the other person. You might ask yourself, who am I being rather than what am I doing? Again, tapping into the values. Who is it that I want to be? You know, as a parent or as a teacher, professional, you know, how am I showing up right now? Be the change you want to see. Demonstrate to the person that you see and hear them through eye contact, gestures, posture, tone of voice. 93% of our communication is non-verbal. So it's so important. You know, sometimes that's about getting down to their level, giving that good eye contact, having an open posture, and keeping the tone of voice calm and soothing. Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson, in their new book, The Power of Showing Up, they use the acronym of PEACE. The first P then is for presence. And this is really about physically just being there. E is for engagement. And again, that's using all that non-verbal communication, you know, showing that you're listening, giving eye contact, and all of the positive communication. Showing affection through warmth, kindness, being calm. Even if the child is really struggling and maybe dysregulated, it's about you staying calm, being steady, and that can really resonate then with that child. And then empathy. Cognitive empathy is placing yourself in the other person's shoes, or emotional empathy is where you're resonating, you're really connecting on that emotional level. And Thich Nhat Hanh quote here. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Buddhist Vietnamese monk and peace activist. He says, when the crowded Vietnamese refugee boats met with the storms, or pirates. If everyone panicked, all would be lost. But if even one person on the boat remained calm and centered, it was enough. It showed the way for everyone to survive. So we're moving on now to the healthy mind platter. We've discussed strategies and approaches for supporting children and young people, as well as ourselves, to return to the river of well-being. And this is now a framework that can help to maintain the river. So it's developed by Dan Siegel again, along with David Rock. It's based on neuroscience, clinical practice, behavioural research and psychology. And it identifies 7 areas which strengthen the brain's internal connections, strengthens connecting with other people, and improves integration, which leads to a healthy mind. And these are the 7 areas: sleep, physical time, focus time, playtime, connecting time, downtime, and then time in. So we mentioned sleep before, but it is so crucial in terms of mental as well as physical well-being. So the brain needs rest in order to consolidate learning, recover from the experiences of the day. Sufficient sleep helps concentration, emotional well-being, learning and behaviour. Physical time, when we move our bodies aerobically if possible, strengthens the brain in many ways. It improves mood, reduces stress and anxiety, and increases focus. Focus time, when we closely focus on tasks in a goal-orientated way, taking on challenges that make deep connections in the brain, concentrating on solving problems, writing essays, studying, etc. Playtime, when we allow ourselves to be spontaneous and creative, playfully enjoying novel experiences, which helps make new connections in the brain, joking, being silly, having fun. Connecting time, when we connect with other people, ideally in person, or take time to appreciate our connection to the natural world around us, richly activating the brain's relational circuitry. Things like gratitude, generosity, and giving back. Downtime, when we're non-focused without any specific goal and let our mind wander or simply relax, which helps our brain recharge. Chilling out, an important part of consolidating learning. And then time in, when we quietly reflect internally, focusing on sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts, helping to better integrate the brain. Mindfulness and self-awareness activities, really good for this. And some other self-awareness activities might be writing a diary, keeping a journal, or talking through with another person how they're feeling. So we can just consider then those 7 different areas. You know, how much time does the child or young person spend in these different areas, and you know, can they perhaps spend a little bit more time in a particular area? So in summary, we all have a river in which we are able to function effectively and focus on our work, play, and relationships. This is different for each of us and can change from day to day. We can become more aware of our river and our edges, and we can develop a greater space. When we've noticed we've moved into a dysregulated state, we can use strategies to bring us back to the river. When supporting someone else, we need to start with ourselves. When we are regulated, we're then much more able to support the regulation of another. Our ability to be truly present is crucial for the other person to feel safe and connected. And when involved in structuring their time, whether at home or school, we can consider the healthy mind platter for balancing activities to promote well-being. So the Psychology and Wellbeing Service have a number of booklets which we've recently put together on various topics such as sleeping well, mindfulness, study skills, general well-being, and so these can be accessed by contacting the service as well. So I'm hoping that you found this of help. You may have raised more questions. We'll be doing a fuller version of this training for particular staff. So